This is the Movie Theater Butter Podcast, where we talk about stories made into movies and what was modified for the big screen. As a warning, this episode will discuss the plot of both the movie and its original source material, so be ready for spoilers. I'm your host, Kim Labick, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Good idea.
Speaking normal sentences. So Furiosa. Today I am joined by my friend and a fantastic costume designer, Molly Martin. Molly, how's it going?
Going pretty good, thanks. How about yourself?
It's going amazingly. As we talked right before we hit record, everything in life and in the world is good.
It's perfectly fine. There's nothing going wrong.
Nothing going wrong. We are not slowly but surely heading towards post-apocalyptic Australia gas town war madness.
They say World War III leads to all of this, and I think we're getting there. So, yeah.
We're close,
It's gonna be good.
I would say, as clearly a historical expert, clearly that's where my expertise is. Not in film.
No, not at all. I don't even know why you do this.
Yeah, I've never seen a movie ever, except this one that you and I just saw today and are immediately talking about. Love it. Okay, so Furiosa, clearly it is a Mad Max film. We're going to talk about it, kind of as its solo thing, but also a little bit in the context of the fact that this film is directly tied to and semi an adaptation of Mad Max Fury Road, which, for all intents and purposes, fight me if you disagree with this, but I think Mad Max Fury Road is a Furiosa movie. Mad Max is just like a side there.
He's like a side character. It's to get people to the theaters. You got to have the title Mad Max in there so people know what you're kind of talking about.
Yeah, so you get like the vibes and like the color palette, and then just like give them a beautiful story, kind of unrelated to the character that they came there for.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Okay, so let's start off with our favorite quote, which for both of us, we kind of preemptively talked about this. It's less of a favorite quote and more of a favorite moment because notably, Furiosa, our main character, has like a couple dozen lines, maybe, and most of them are like one or two words. So we're going to start off with kind of a favorite moment of the film. Molly, what was one of your favorite moments here?
I think my favorite moment was the first time you see Chris Pine's character, Dementis, in his chariot of motorcycles. It's just like this grand moment of look at all these crazy motorcycle people and him just like, yeah, I have I think it's 3 motorcycles that I use as a chariot. And anytime it started and stopped, I just kept thinking like, how did they do this and why?
Yeah, I feel like, and I did spend like a hot second honestly looking at like how the setup was for that, and it was just basically like they had like all the handles connected by like a stick kind of thing. So it was like one giant handle, of course. It was like I had to do this back and forth. And then I thought for like the briefest second, I was like, how do you actually do that with like the start and stop? And don't motorcycles have like a thingy thing where like you can like vroom instead of just like little vroom?
Yeah, and they're not usually as stable as they are. They usually tilt, and your body weight and the fact that you're going so fast is what keeps them up. So
yeah, I don't know.
It's very epic every time, and he has that big, beautiful billowing cloak, and he's just like, ah ha ha. Excellent.
He has his little Ben-Hur moment, and we love it.
Yes, that's literally what I was thinking when I watched it. I was like, this feels like a Ben-Hur.
Yeah, like, dude, if I had a dollar for every time I saw a chariot in a movie, I'd have like $4, and by now that's kind of a lot because there was like the new Ben-Hur. There was like Hunger Games. Oh, there was like 2 Hunger Games because they did it like twice.
Are we counting each chariot or just like a film that a chariot is part of?
Oh wow! If it was each chariot, I could buy dinner.
2 Hunger Games movies.
Facts. Wow. One of the best uses of chariots. And then this film was also a great use of a chariot.
This is Ace Chariot right here.
10 out of 10. Great chariot. So to sidebar over. So one of my favorite moments in this film, one of my favorite moments in this film was I'm so good at speaking. You know what's crazy? I suck at speaking English normally. And then the second I hit record for any one of these podcasts, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. But the magic of editing. So
there you go. Here we are.
No one will ever know. I'm so well spoken. So my favorite
Your
moment
favorite
of this
moment.
film was when they used a piece of wood as the car wheel. Like we get like it's all the way
Mm,
towards the end, and she like needs a ride to get out of the Citadel. And one of the I don't think it's technically a war boy, but one of the like in the war boy world
mhm.
area, um, it's like, yeah, I have a vehicle. I want to show you my cool vehicle, and he pulls off a like it's like a curtain of cobwebs off of this vehicle, and it's like super old and beat up, and it specifically does not have a back right wheel. And they're just like, okay, I guess we'll tie a giant stick to it and
This
that
will fix
somehow
it.
works. Yeah, they fix it and then they give it
I
a
mean,
wooden stick wheel.
it worked. I mean, it drives. It does drive. She's able to get
Me and
to her
my first
destination.
car. Yeah, literally. Car troubles be like. But yeah, I love that moment because it was like this
Yeah.
is probably the pinnacle of one of the just like silliest, fun, cheesy, ridiculous action moments of this
Oh,
movie.
yeah.
So, of this
It
milm, as we call it in the industry.
I do feel like everything took itself very seriously. It was very intense the whole time. And so having that, like,
Yeah.
little moment of light, like, "Look at my amazing vehicle," and it's literally just, like, a hunk of junk, was really, like, the breather moment that I needed,
Yeah.
to,
True.
like, be like, "Oh, okay. We're allowed to laugh at some of this stuff because there's some stuff I wanted to, and I was like, I don't think I can. This is bad."
Like
So
everything that Dementa said, where you're like, oh, it's kind of worth a chuckle, but also no, because I hate
yeah,
you.
like, you're horrifying, and you're
Yeah.
deeply disturbed, and I could laugh if I wasn't terrified.
Maybe it's one of those like, when you rewatch this film on a movie night and most people aren't paying attention, that's when you can be like, haha, Dementus, you silly guy. But now it's like it's too heavy. But with the
Yeah.
heaviness, so this is like the second super dramatic desert big budget film that we have this year, which again, if I had a
Oh,
dollar, I still couldn't buy a gallon of gas with that. But
oh, heck no.
anyways, what I want to like thesis statement about that is how this like ties into Mad Max Fury Road. I felt like this movie, Furiosa, was aimed at such a different audience
Mhm.
than like Fury Road was.
Okay.
Because Fury Road was, I think, overall more fun and cheesy. Yes, still definitely dramatic, but
Mhm.
like classic like the guitar guy, like
Yeah,
flamethrower guitar guy, that kind of stuff was way more abundant in Fury Road. And then
yeah.
you get to this film, which is supposed to kind of like live in the same world, very well,
Mhm.
literally in the same world, but also
Yeah,
like it should be, your double feature kind of thing.
yeah,
And it felt more like it was super, super driven towards like the Sundance audience kind of thing,
yeah,
like the more art appreciative audience than just like the fun
yeah.
people.
Oh, I feel that. So I decided to be that guy, and I, like, went back and I watched just the first half of the original Mad Max, and
Oh
then all the
shit. Okay.
trailers, the honest trailer was like, "Okay, where did we come from? Where have we gone to hit?" Because obviously Mad Max Fury Road, everyone kinda went in with a base understanding of there was something previously. Like, this isn't the first time that we've
Mhm.
had this kind of environment and this world. And I got the overall feeling like most of the films were kind of more Fury Road-esque, where it's this kind of like chaotic, a little bit silly, a little bit wild um world view. And watching the first one, I kept thinking of Clockwork Orange and the kind of like laughy, we're gonna go do
Okay.
crime
Oh yeah,
energy
yeah.
of that film in the beginning. And like the characters felt very that to me. Um, and I can see that a little bit in like as the films progress and getting into Fury Road. But it definitely feels like Fury Road was like has the biggest modern budget, lots of chaos, lots of shenanigans, and you're thrown into this world that you really kind of don't fully understand. Whereas Furiosa, it's like, okay, let's take a breather. Let's look at kind of transition of the world from like a point of here is where if you could get anything like food, water, have a life. This is kind of where it is, in where, spoiler alert, I mean, I guess we're all the spoilers here.
Oh, the whole thing is a spoiler. Yeah.
Where Furiosa is kind of born and raised in her kind of community, and then moving into kind of that more chaotic world. And so it like ties the strings together of something that is very real and feels, I feel like, more tactile almost, of this like post-apocalyptic world. And we literally only saw like
Yeah.
moments of her town and the people there, but I felt very much like, okay, this I get where we've landed, I get where we've kind of come from. And then we go and we find all of the Fury Road kind of carry us, and weird characters, and all of Immortan Joe and Dementis's kind of scallywag bands and everything that were so kind of shocking upon first just like randomly seeing them and being hit by them in Fury Road. So I definitely agree with you that this feels more like an artistic moment. And
Mhm.
like, I don't want to say that Fury Road isn't storytelling, because it definitely is,
Right.
but it's
Yeah.
a different kind. It's a lot more of just like a throw you into the deep end, figure it all out yourself, and you're kind of like, what's happening? And Furiosa kind of has those steps to get you in.
100, especially with like even just the gas town of it all. That we've
Yeah.
gotten the establishment of a couple other places, and we get a very quick establishment of just more of the timeline in
Yeah.
both films. So in Furiosa, in this film, and in Fury Road, they start off with, I think, almost an identical like narration news clips thing,
Mhm.
where they're talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
everything sucks, everybody's sick.
The
There's
world's
no
at
more water. The words are, yeah, they like have
civil
these like little cute
war.
clips. Yeah. So they start out with like practically the same. It might actually be the exact same opening with
Mm,
that to give you a little bit of the world's establishment, like just to
yeah.
give you that quick, this is a post-apocalypse movie. And then yeah, there's just different ways in which, and again, you're totally right that this story gives more like world building, right? Like this
Yeah.
story establishes more of like in Fury Road, we heard about Gastown and we could
Mhm.
assume what that is. We never really get there.
Yeah.
But in this movie, we go to Gastown, we see Gastown, we get the history of like the power exchange. We go
Yeah.
to the bullet farm as well. And again, there's also like that moment where I'm going to call him a maester because I don't know what his term is in this, but the like mace, the like guy who knows everything, the like wizard looking
Oh,
dude.
the history man.
Yeah, history man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that actually his name?
That's literally, yeah, his name was
Oh,
History Man.
great. I literally could have just come up.
They all had really weird names,
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
no judgment.
Yeah.
History Man.
There's Scrotus. There's
Oh my god, as soon as they
Butthole
said that,
guy.
his
Yeah.
brother's last, like, middle name is Erectus, if you did not see that in the credits, because that
Hot. Nice.
literally broke me and Cora. I went with Cora, and we literally were like,
Worth
"Oh
it.
my god."
Oh, then to put all of the, and I mean, all the names are kind of silly, but that
Mhm.
reaches like a beautiful low of silly.
Oh, it's
10 out
bad.
of 10.
It's bad.
Yeah. But again, Furiosa definitely establishes more of the world. And
Mhm,
even like we literally see the green place. So we get like a very physical representation of that, which
mhm.
I think was so beautifully done in like such a short amount of time. Because of course you
Yeah.
get like there's trees, there's plants and all that kind of stuff. But you
Mhm,
also get like just a visual on how this community has adapted to the post-apocalyptic world and has tried to make a better, more sustainable environment. Like you literally get, I mean, they're doing like basic crop stuff. They've got
yeah,
like, I don't know if I would call it tents. I don't know if that's the accurate word, but they have like sustainable looking housing.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
even have wind turbines, which if I wanted to get like super picky and super specific about it, I could talk about how that's probably not accurate to a
Oh, we could get
post-apocalyptic sustainable, but it
don't
gets the
get me
message
started on
across.
accuracy of post-apocalyptic sustainable society in the clothing. I will go off for many hours,
Please
so
do.
I
Please do. Clothing thing. Okay, so obviously you are knowledgeable when it comes to
yeah,
costuming. You are an active and incredible costume designer.
yeah.
So one of the things I want to talk about, of course, is some of the
Mhm.
costuming. I'm sure
Yeah.
you'll have way more insight, but one of the biggest things in this film that so notably stands out is the cape, is his white
Oh,
to red to black to white, red,
oh,
black
I
cape.
love the cape.
Yeah. I thought it was beautiful. And it was one of those things too that like obviously we see it because we're film people, we work in
Mhm,
this world and we just kind of naturally take in that knowledge, that like
mhm,
intentional symbolism stuff. But the cape in particular, I think was so like overt, right? It was so done to like make you see that the white cape is now red, is now
mhm.
black, like to
And
go
the
through that
colors bleaching
transition.
out towards the end as
Yeah.
he's, like, keeps going a little crazy, cuckoo bananas. Oh,
Cuckoo bananas. Beautiful. Incredible.
it's the accurate word.
Magnificent.
Oh,
A costuming thing I want to talk about as well, and we can go more on the cape, but just I have
yeah,
this in my notes and it needs to be said,
mhm.
and it is relevant to costuming. I fucking hated the nipple guy
Oh my
for
god,
so many reasons. Yeah,
so uncomfortable.
please, please.
It makes
Just
me
like
so uncomfortable.
constantly, he's like, I'm like, can you for like 5 fucking seconds stop
So,
pinching your nipple?
I would not come at that in a costume perspective. My guess
Okay,
is that it is in the script and it is a director note and it's like, okay, this is this character. I think his name was like the People Eater,
that
which like
tracks.
doesn't entirely it like makes sense, but it doesn't entirely. Anyway, People Eater has I love his little nose thing, being like, okay, is it there? Is it not there? What's
Yes.
going on? Um, could his nose have been eaten? Did he eat his own nose? What happened to his nose? I don't know. Anyway,
Ate his own nose.
so
How? I don't want to ask that question. Yes, go ahead.
I think as a costumer, a lot of information like, okay, here's this guy that doesn't have a nose and is constantly like pulling with his nipples, which bleh. Um, you think about, okay, why, how, what is the kind of like motivation there, and figure out how does he get to do that regularly.
Mhm,
And as somebody who's supposed to be this kind of hoity-toity, I loved the idea of him in this like nice ass suit with just his nips cut out. I thought that
mhm.
was great. He makes me incredibly uncomfortable. I don't want to be anywhere near him. I would not want to be in the same room as him ever. No,
Yeah.
never. No, nay, never. Um, but the costume designer, Jenny Bevans, is just like so great at taking weird elements like that and making them into purposeful moments and making it something that like you see and you recognize. And I don't know if it's in the script that like you see his nipples and he's playing with them. My guess is that he it just said like, oh, he's like fiddling with himself. And like it
Mhm.
was something weird and creepy that she said, oh no, we're gonna make this a purposeful moment. We're gonna see this as a purposeful thing of he's got him out, he's got him chained up with little nipple tassel thingies, chains going on. Like he
He's getting the
is
full.
like purposefully looking like this. And I think that is such a great use of script transfer, of looking at the script and saying, all right, here's what I can take out. I'd be very curious to see what is said about him from the get go, you know?
Yeah. Oh, especially with this, especially with just how unique the costume and the world of the fashion design is in general,
Yeah.
because it's so like most post-apocalyptic media, you kind of have like a vague color palette. It's
Yeah.
very like washed down, more earth tones for the most part.
Mhm.
It's kind of scrappy. You're getting like the Star Wars look of it all, right? That
Yeah.
kind of thing. Which Star Wars isn't really post, but you know what I mean when I say
Like,
that.
yeah, it's
Robes,
you in terms
tatters.
of world building, Star Wars
Yeah.
has very definite worlds and very definite color palettes for every planet. So in that sense, post-apocalyptic world does have that vibe and does have a similar color palette to a lot of like Star Wars films have a post-apocalyptic color palette
Mhm.
to an extent. So depending on the
Yeah.
planet you're on.
Thank
Anyway,
you. Thank you
that's my
for validating my yeah,
you're so welcome
100%.
anytime.
I appreciate it. So, yeah, so that's like, there is kind of like a general sort of agreed upon post-apocalyptic costume language of sorts. But Mad Max, the world of Mad Max, and specifically Furiosa and Fury Road, there is also such an interesting like industrial like invention element to it
Oh, yeah.
that like even Nipple Guy, he's also got like a I don't know how to explain this, like a gas mask coming from his specific area down below. How do I say that in a way that I can put on YouTube and it's not weird?
Ooh, I don't know that there is a way to say that.
His Anka Jams.
Okay, uh-huh. Yeah,
So is that yeah, we know what that means. Anyways, he's
yeah.
got like what is like kind of like a gas mask on that area of his body
Mhm.
with like an elongated tube going to I'm not sure where, and it could just be like a post-apocalyptic catheter, but it could also be who knows what the fuck. And then Immortan Joe has his whole, but all of these elements just in like a vague way of speaking about it. There's more than just the post-apocalyptic
Mm.
language. There's also this element of the weird creation that you see in
Yeah.
everything in this world.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like crazy when you add it to what you're wearing. Because I think most of us aren't going to be like, oh, cool, how can I improve this outfit? Oh, I'll add a cooling fan in my sleeve or something, like not
Yeah.
like an industrial element.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But this world just like opens it up to that.
I think our costume designer, Jenny, is very great at finding those weird elements and pulling that in. She's the same it's the same designer who did the first Fury Road. She also did Cruella. So she's got that like punk edge. She knows
Mm-hmm.
how to take something that is almost nothing and say, here is the purposeful point of this, and make it look like it's so necessary. Like it's the only thing that brings a costume together. Like she is just I adore her as like a fellow punk. She frickin' wins. Um,
Hell
but
yeah.
she has such an eye for pulling out how to make something look necessary and artistic at the same time. Like something that
Mhm.
is very speaks to their character and then also is brought into um like an industrial post-apocalyptic world. Like what could you find and what could you figure out and what would you put together? And
Mhm.
I should try and find a copy of the script. I would be so curious what sort of elements are script entitled and what sort of elements are design entitled. For instance, like the little wheels that they have that they wear as belt buckles that have those chains coming off and they look like, you know, the wheels that you get
With
when you
the kind of like the
brig.
skull in the middle of
Yeah,
it.
the
Yeah.
little Immortan Joe symbol in the middle. And there's so few people that have them. And it is a purposeful, like, character decision who has them and why they have them. And I
Mhm.
really would love to know if that's something that is throughout the script. And it's like, oh, we had this guy walks in, he's got a steering wheel belt buckle.
Mhm.
Or this character, if they're saying, okay, and Morton Joe has a gas mask of some sort on him, like what is written in there versus
Yeah.
what is entirely out of Jenny Boone's mind. I just would
Dude,
love to
that is
in there.
one of the most intriguing parts of I think watching any film that you are not directly involved in or don't know
Yeah,
somebody directly involved in is that like beautiful guessing game of, whose work is this? Because I think oftentimes video essay type stuff, right, that you see online kind of attributes every single detail to the director, which is almost never the case. You
yeah,
almost never have a director who is so precisely, directly hands on with every detail that they
okay.
timed out, you know, the 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 red laser in the background to accidentally flicker off at the exact time that we cut stuff like that. But so that being said, that's one of the fun parts, and I think also like it it just reflects on the community that brings a film to life because we mostly attribute films to their director and their writer and their producer are kind of like the people who tend like when we think of Furiosa, we don't
Mhm.
say it's a collaborative film. We would ultimately say like it's a George Miller film.
Yeah,
That's how we attribute film nowadays, which good and bad to it, and there's right and wrong to it. But every film is made of so many different moving pieces. and stuff like that. You never know if like maybe it was George Miller who really wrote in there like the specific details of like nipple guys, like chain and that it was a silver chain or whatever. But it could also just be like, again, guy plays with his nipples, this kind of a freak, says a couple of lines, and then the
Yeah.
costume, like, it's so fun trying to think about where that was in the process. And then again, ultimately getting to that point in your mind where it's like, film will always be such an importantly collaborative effort. And
Oh, yeah.
it's beautiful to recognize that, kind of in the way that, like, I don't know, I guess you don't really get that thing with really any other art medium. It's mostly just
Basically,
film and
no.
maybe
Like,
gaming.
a little bit of theater, a little bit, but you don't
Yeah.
usually have the numbers, I feel like, because you can, I feel, go into a movie and see all of the costumes, all of the props, all the sets, all of it, and see kind of like, okay, a directorial vision.
Mm.
And you attribute it to a director because you know they approved of things, they looked at things, they said things. A writer has written out the kind of scope of what this world is. The production has kind of decided where they're going to go with that. The director has said, here's the vision, and put it all together. That said, in a big film like this, the director is not coming in and being like, okay, every single one of these background characters, these background writers, I want this sort of piece for character X. Fourth writer from the back needs to be in these colors. This is the style of his hair. This is the type of ride he has. I want this kind of belt, this kind of vibe. And as much as there might be a Dementis is writing with a parachute cape as like a written line in the script, that is never the case for 500 plus background biker guys.
Mhm.
So there is so much of a collaborative team energy. And I know from working on Star Wars, there was a bunch of like very specific things that were very specifically told you had to do something like X, you had to do something like Y. It had to have this kind of vibe because Lucasfilm said so.
Mm.
And at the same time, Lucasfilm's not going to sit there and handle every single background extra that comes through there. They were bussing them in.
Mhm.
Like we needed tons
There's
and
a
tons.
reason people are hired for the different jobs, and it's not just
Exactly.
one person ever makes a film. Yeah.
And the there was a ton of, you are going to make, we need these necklaces that we know go on these characters, like this is the celebration necklace for these aliens. But it was incredibly collaborative. Once you had that, you were told, here's the vibe. We went and got the alien stones from costume props, like poured us out stones that were specific to the planet that we were on, and then stringing them together and putting them together and designing each of those pieces was our own job, which was incredibly fun. So I'm sure the team on Furiosa had an absolute blast being able to sit there and be like, okay, how am I decking out this background person? How am I making this piece something interesting, something fun that fits in the world, but is a little bit your own, you know?
Mhm.
And that's like, that's what makes collaborative film, I think, so great, and big projects like this so entertaining to be on and to watch, is because you know
Mhm.
all the hands that have been in this, and it makes it feel more natural to the moment. If you had one person who's doing all of the background extras and all the main characters, you are going to have variation, but you are going to have a very like stamped on image, I feel like, versus each
Yeah.
person who comes in brings a different vibe, a different look, and puts a new character together. And that's really what the point is. Each of these background people is a new character. So
Mhm. Hell
that's a
yeah.
big hit film.
100%. Even with no, I loved it. I love beautiful TED Talk. I would clap. I would do a 7-minute standing ovation for you.
Oh, thank you.
Much like Furiosa got at the Cannes Film Festival to slide us back in.
Really? Oh my,
And yeah, I do want to go back to the Cape for a quick second because I
yeah.
have a specific question for you
Okay.
on the Cape. And of course, this is also up to interpretation, but
Mhm.
so Dementis's cape evolves in these different important pieces of the story, important like checkpoints of the story,
Mhm.
and his character. And we get to that like near final scene where it is just the two of them in the desert. And it's like finally her revenge moment, her face to face revenge moment. She
Mhm.
has the cape on. And he has a couple of lines where he says something like, you and I are the same. Like cut from the same cloth or whatever it is. He's like, we are the same now. Like, I'm a
Great
terrible, crazy
interpretation of
person. You're a
that.
terrible, crazy. Yeah. This is exactly how I would write it if I was going to write it. So he has this line, and of course, she's wearing his cape. And
Mhm.
I think I interpreted this a little bit differently, but let me phrase this as a question to you and see what your thoughts are. Do you think at that moment that truly Furiosa has become like Dementis? And I guess how would you define that either?
Okay. Hmm. My gut instinct very harshly says no. I think the reason my gut instinct says no is because a lot of Dementis's plot and story and power comes from the people he's collecting around him. He has his team, even if he like breaks off with a lot of his gangs, like the octopus guy.
Mhm.
And he is holding all of those people together, and that's really where his power is being able to run all of these people, being able to make them all do his bidding. And Furiosa never collects people. She's never the sort of person that is
Mhm.
gaining the followers in order to exact her revenge or take power or literally do anything. There's no point in our entire knowledge, this movie and Fury Road, that we see her attempting to collect power in that way. I think
Very
he does
true.
have
Very
a
good
point of
point.
like how he's going about revenge and how she is like coming for him the same way that he is regularly coming for all the people we see him kind of attack on the road. Um, but she never it goes for that power.
100%. That's a beautiful way of reading it because I didn't even notice that. And again, I saw this just today, like a couple
Yeah.
hours ago for the first time, first and only time so far. And there is so much that you can, especially as film people, there's so much that like we just subconsciously derive from
Mhm.
working on set and watching so many movies. We can get stuff like that. That is something I did not notice until you just talked about it now. But you're 100% right that she doesn't collect people for power. She really very literally carves her own path in that way. Damn, that's fucking crazy. Very, very nice. Yeah. Now I'm gonna go see it again and like note all of the times. Because especially when you mentioned that, I was thinking about she does have a character that she befriends and they
Mhm.
have a great like working relationship and they help each other. And it's a very important and fascinating relationship in this
Mhm.
story. But at the same time, yeah, it's much more mutualistic. It's not that she's using him, she helps him, he
Mhm.
helps her.
Yeah.
Ultimately, yeah, it's not an abuse of people for power. It's
I
not
would
like,
say
yeah,
I'd
go
say
ahead.
he collects her more than she collects him. And they don't really even like collect each other in the same way, but like he is the one that in the end reaches out the olive branch because she's ready to off him. She's ready to just like kill him, take that war rig and get the hell out of there. And he's
Mhm,
like, all right, I'm gonna help you. Let's work together to do this. And then she goes back for him, and therefore they have like this mutual moment.
mhm.
Um, Short lasting as it is.
Short and beautiful.
Short and beautiful.
It's better to burn out than to fade away, some might say. That is a strange quote for me to bring into this right now in this context. I might edit it out, I might not. So Furiosa. Uh, two notes that I have on my 2 bullet points that I have on my notes are just to very specifically and vocally mention how incredible Chris Hemsworth was in
Oh
this
my
film.
god.
And like, I mean, there's always a thing where like actors who are so stuck in a specific role in the
Mhm.
popular culture, there some actors will kind of like stay in that forever, for better or for worse, and some actors will be like, I desperately need a totally different role to like establish my range. And Chris Hemsworth, of course, we all know and love him so strongly as Thor. He is Thor to like
He's
the
the
whole world. Yeah.
Thor.
And this character of Dementis is so incredibly different. And
Mhm.
for all of us to have the visual of Chris Hemsworth attached so strongly to Thor, and then see him in a new movie. He did an incredible job of immediately disappearing into it. Like of course I know it's Chris Hemsworth, but the whole time I was watching it, the name of Chris Hemsworth, what I have associated with him was so far gone. I was so enveloped in or immersed in Dementis the character.
Yeah. I am right there with you. I think he did an absolutely incredible job of bringing something entirely new for him to the table. And there were moments where I was like, okay, this feels very Chris Hemsworth, like how my like knowledge of how he does certain things or like certain ways that he talks, you can kind of hear the not the colloquial, like what is it? What's the word for like having a pattern of speech? You know?
Not like the meaning tone, but just like the tone,
The
like
like
intonation
yeah, the kind of
almost.
intonations. Yeah, yeah, I think
Mm.
intonation is probably where I'm going for. So he has some intonations that are patterned in a way that I recognize, but otherwise he was fully in it, fully about it, and did such a great job of pulling something new for himself and creating like carving a new space for him. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I thought annotated start over.
Anna Karenina, Taylor Swift Lautner, Joy.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I thought our Furiosa
She
was she
did
was great.
great.
I thought young Furiosa was better.
Oh,
Just because
really?
I thought this is a young actress who took that role and really just ate it. She did so freaking good. And not that Anna Taylor-Joy didn't, but I just was so absorbed in this younger Furiosa's acting that when we get to the known actress, I was kind of like, eh. I've kind of fallen in love with this girl. I think she is just so
Yeah.
killer, especially for being so young and putting so much heart into that and putting like her pain and sorrow. And like I felt for her in all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my only critique. I thought Anna Taylor Joy did a great job. I thought her younger version was a little bit better, but I also think that's partially what she was given, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
Furiosa's growth and intrigue and becoming a person who she is really in that young version. And when we see her as Anna Taylor Joy, it is a solidified adult like
Mm-hmm.
representation of like, okay, it's Charlize Theron, right? In the new one?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It is Anna Taylor Joy as Charlize Theron younger Furiosa. Like it is a created person already who's making
Mm-hmm.
decisions within her world and within her story, but her story as a like growing up and becoming this character is prior to I think when Anna Taylor-Joy takes over the character in the story in the film. So,
It kind of gives me a little bit of just the tiniest tinge of Jane Eyre. I don't know if you ever read Jane Eyre. And this is not me being like, I don't know if you've ever read Jane Eyre, the
no, I've
classic.
read Jane Eyre.
Okay, cool. It's
Yeah.
a commonly known. Everybody reads it in school. So
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
Anyways, but
It's a pain in
it
the
gives
butt.
me a tinge of it gives me a tinge of Jane Eyre in the sense that like, but I guess I can kind of relate to this too. I think a lot of us can kind of relate to this when you are that age that like young Furiosa is. In some ways, you are a little bit your best self because you haven't been super conditioned into a lot of like the negatives of the world, like
Yeah.
the biases,
Oh
all
yeah.
of that. Like you haven't kind of gotten, especially as a woman, right? I think like
Mhm.
when you're younger, you haven't internalized all of the misogyny in your life yet. You've kind
Mhm.
of just been like, I'm fucking cool. I'm a kid and I'm dumb and I'm gonna go run into a wall because I want to run into a wall. Whereas like the
It's
older you
fun, you can
get,
have
the
fun
more you're
still.
like, yeah, it's so fun. And then you know what like it feels to run into a
Yeah.
wall. And then you know that you can't run through walls and you've established.
Mhm.
But when you're a kid, you are more freely yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas then you kind of get to a point where more you're learning and you see the horrors of the world, much like Furiosa sees the horrors of the world. And even though it doesn't diminish her. It shapes her in a way that is different than what she had the sort of original potential for.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that actress absolutely did an incredible job. Anya Taylor-Joy also did incredible. And I don't know the actor's name, but even that guy who was like Furiosa's buddy, even he
Yeah,
did
we
an
had to look
incredible
that up
job.
afterwards, and I've completely forgotten. But yeah, no, he was great.
Yeah.
He was good. You could see what was going on in his head and his established character, which I thought was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing I do want to mention, it's not super costume related, it's in the world of character design,
mm,
uh, her hair. So we
mm,
know and love Furiosa as beautiful bald Furiosa with her uh, sort of, I guess you would call it face painting, war paint, whatever's the term. That's how we know and love Furiosa. And of course, we know she's going to get to that point. But before then, when she's young Furiosa, she has hair, it's grown out to a certain length. And then when she is like, we're going to call her coming of age Furiosa. When she is coming of age Furiosa, she has really long hair. And my understanding of this is part of the reason for that was that some of the early character design was like a Barbarella. So they were sort of thinking of long flowing hair. And a lot of it was also apparently, according to Anya Taylor-Joy in an interview, George Miller was just like didn't want her to shave her head as an actress because he
mm,
was like, your hair is fucking gorgeous, let's use it, kind of thing, which is cool, and that's a whole nother topic. But I think in the realm of the character, she's so smart as a kid and making all of these brilliant decisions on how to navigate this crazy cruel world. And I was thinking the whole time, I was like, she would have cut her hair earlier. She would have wanted as much as possible. Because even when she's young and she like escapes from
mhm.
creepy pedophile dude,
Something
you
erectus.
know,
I literally don't remember
yeah,
his first
yeah, grossest name ever, but also hilarious. Um, when she escapes, she has that moment. She cuts her hair for the wig, and that's so smart. And I first watched that, and of course, I was like, okay, so she's bald from here on out, like bald the whole movie. Trailers aside, I knew that. But if it was just the movie, anyways, she would have kept cutting her hair, I think, because just like, again, trying to survive in a world that clearly, like, your femininity is going to be like weaponized against you. Like, clearly, it's not a good place to be a woman.
Mhm.
Like, she would have cut her hair. And I know that they do also kind of explain that as like, yeah, that's where she's hiding the seed and that's important and cool stuff. But I'm like, I don't know. That was, I think, like my one kind of
Seed in this.
criticism. I could tell, yeah, you can put a hide and seed in there somewhere. Put it in a little bun,
Yeah,
perfect.
no, of course. No,
But
I
it's
agree.
just like I was like, she would have cut her hair and kept it cut.
I
I don't know.
literally anytime the first time her hair came her, like, what she was covering her head up with came off, and the long hair came out, I was like, "Whoa, Nelly, no. I don't believe that for a second." Because
Hmm.
as somebody who has played sports and works a lot with my hands, like, it's not helpful. It's really not helpful. You want it up, you want it out of the way. You wouldn't just have it in a hat. Like, there's no way that's going to hold properly. And that's, in my mind, a directorial point from a man who doesn't understand the ramifications of having hair down to your waist that just flows and does whatever. You have to brush that. You have to take care of that. And that's something that,
Hmm.
unless you wanted that to come out of the hat and just be like a mat in the back of her head, like, that's going to get seen regularly when she brushes that, when she cleans that. And I didn't believe the choice. And
Hmm.
as much as I appreciate a separation of, like, the hair fully shaved Furiosa and our, like, Furiosa with the hair that's supposed to be like, okay, she hasn't fully cut herself off to be that vision, because you've already had her as a shave with a shaved head, you've already cut that off. You've already made your statement on that. And as you said, talking about weaponized femininity, like, she's weaponized her femininity in a way that the hair is going to come off and she can run away from it and she can survive because of that.
Hmm.
So you've made your point. You don't need to have her with long hair again.
And it's also super impractical for a post-apocalyptic world where she's spending time under a war rig changing tubes.
Yeah.
And also to that note, but I think this is ultimately a good note. We're talking about the cape again for a second. Okay. Because cape is technically impractical for this world as well. Not to like drop the Edna Mode Incredibles thing, but like no capes, right? Like capes will get caught and stuff. It's bad. It's especially for a post-apocalyptic car crazy world. But I think there's a way to also just like read that I kind of just do, and maybe this is to compliment the costume designer, but that character who wears the cape is not necessarily a practical, smart thinking guy. It would totally make more sense to be flashy in that way, in the same way that he's kind of flashy with the teddy bear.
So, as a costume designer, I see that as a statement of power. The cape is
Okay.
it's an impractical, something that's impractical, something that doesn't necessarily function for the average person. If you have that anyway, that's a statement of you saying, F you, I have this ability, I have the power to do this, and
Like the ice
I can get away
purse
with it.
at the Met Gala, kind of like the ice purse.
Yeah.
Where it's like no one's gonna ever use an ice purse, a purse made out of ice, but it's
But
a
they
statement of
do.
being in a privileged position to like show off. Yeah,
Exactly.
okay,
And also having it be out of a um, parachute material, it feels like it has a little bit of practicality in terms of like there are ways that it could be used to do other things. And so, in a world where everything's kind of stealing everything, if you're like, I probably should have a parachute for X, Y, or Z reasons, holding on to something like that on your person makes sense as well. If we're getting down to like nitty gritties of practicality. But I think it's a power statement. I think it is why he has it and keeps it for the whole movie. And
it
when she
does
gets a
even make
hold of
him
it,
like physically bigger and more
it
imposing
does,
as
yeah.
well. Yeah,
So when Furiosa gets a hold of it at the end, that's like it's that transfer of power, and people who aren't necessarily costume lay people can see that transfer of power and feel that without really knowing the full extent of oh no, him having the cape in the first place states his power over the rest of his men.
Mhm.
And the only other guy who had kind of something cape-ish was Octopus Guy, who ended up
Oh yeah,
dying. But he also had the
Ugh,
power. He also was a man, a figure of power, and so he had a little something.
nice, hell yeah.
Costume fun
No, that's
fact.
so. It's love this. This is one of the many reasons I love bringing you on here is because you have
Thank
an insight that again, as somebody who does work in film, but I don't work in
you.
costuming, I get the bits and pieces and can derive more of it. But I love hearing like you have so much experience and knowledge of the way that this element in a film is used for the meaning. You can come and be like, well, here, I know how this fits in, how this gives you that feeling, because it is so my job to do that.
It legitimately is my job to make sure that lay people are who are going to be seeing this film vaguely understand what and why I came up with certain things. So,
Yeah,
going to do that
hell
for them.
yeah. I have a little bit of a side question
Cool.
on the Furiosa of it all and how it ties in with it is still kind of an adaptation from Fury Road. So we get to the end of the film and credits roll, and there are clips from Fury Road, important clips. One could argue the most important clips
Mhm.
from Mad Max Fury Road, uh, blipped into the credits. How did you feel about that? What did you sort of take from that and its importance or lack thereof? Because
So
I'm still kind of on the fence.
yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a fence to be on. um, I think it's a reminder of like what happened, of what is like, okay, look, here's where she goes with this. Because you do get to a point with her story, like you're not finishing her story. You see that she's gone back to the Citadel and you know that she's going to be there, but you've seen her as this figure who is fighting for justice throughout the whole rest of the film. So you're kind of left being like, okay, you're back at the Citadel. I don't want that for you, girl. And even if
Mhm.
you remember that that's where she is from Fury Road, there's this kind of like at the end of the
Right.
film of like questioning what next, what now. So having
Mhm.
that kind of brings you to a, oh, okay, this is what's next. This is what's next. It's the we've gone and moved to she's still continuing her story. All that
Mm.
said, if you are going to see Furiosa and Mad Max, I would argue that you have seen Mad Max Fury Road and you already know that. And
That's kinda where
therefore,
I fence it on, yeah.
yeah. Therefore
And
you don't need
it
it.
does for me too, now that we're talking about it more, it leaves, I think, a totally different flavor in your like a I'm gonna say aftertaste for some reason.
Mhm,
I think it leaves a totally different aftertaste to the film than ending it where it was ended. Because
mhm.
let's say we didn't have those clips. I think we end the Furiosa film and how I felt was very like, oh, she got a deep, dark revenge, and like she has reached kind of this survival darkness. And I'm on one hand proud of her for getting to this part of the journey, and on the other hand, like kind of scared of her and her potential.
Oh, yeah.
And then we get the clips of Fury Road, and it does sort of fill in the blanks of like, she becomes much more protagonist, and like now she's got more of a redemption arc starting. I mean, like
Mhm,
even in Fury Road specifically, we didn't get this in the clips, but even in Fury Road specifically, she has specific dialogue moments where she's like, I am looking for redemption. I am at
yeah,
that point now. So I think if you don't have the Fury Road clips in the credits, you leave off again with just a totally different feeling about that character. Like you kind of then just like speed run through the beginning of her redemption arc, which
mhm,
again, I'm on the fence about
yeah,
because I think I think it also just feeds into where our Western cinema culture is with redemption arcs in general for protagonists.
mhm.
You know, we can kind of go down the line and say like some of the most famous stories that are like villain origin stories, right? Because this Furiosa, I wouldn't say it's a villain origin story, but it lives in that kind of difficult, complex space. So I don't know. Maybe I'm getting super, super detailed into this, but like, you know, we've got the Revenge of the Sith, like we've got like the Anakin story, and that didn't really take off well with audiences at the time. We've grown now, and one of the more notable stories that we have is the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which has a complex character protagonist that kind of ends off on not a great spot, a very bad spot. And
No, he's
even with
fine. He's gonna be
Dune,
fine.
he's fine. He's a good boy.
Everything's
He's
fine.
gonna be okay. He's not gonna be
He's learned his lesson.
fascist dictator for
Oh,
decades. No,
okay.
of course not. He's cute. Why would he ever? But yeah, I guess to bring that back to Furiosa,
Mhm.
maybe that's part of the reason. I almost wish I could talk to George Miller and be like, was that part of the reason you added the Fury Road clips was so that you didn't leave off such a dark flavor with Furiosa? That was that you did kind of plant the seeds for like, do you kind of see what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Of
I
like
see what you're
just
saying
making it
because it
again
is,
more palatable.
yeah, because you've ended off it's definitely ended off in a place of she hasn't, like, gotten what she wants. She revenge on Dementis wasn't entirely her goal or her plan. Her goal was to leave. Her plan was to leave, and I
Hmm.
feel like the fact that she kills him and doesn't leave immediately from there, like, is part of that, like, kind of weird it's a weird moment of, okay, I kinda get it, she doesn't have her map anymore, so clearly she has to start maybe she, like, thinks, "Okay, I have to start from the Citadel because I can figure it out from there." You don't really get a why,
Hmm.
but she we know from Fury Road, goes and does continue her story, does continue her hope of getting back home. I just feel like if you just ended
Yeah.
it on, "Here, she's killed Dementis and she returned to the Citadel. Good job." It's like, "Okay, but that hasn't been her journey the entire film.
Mhm.
So, ending there and not reminding people, "Oh, no, she's, like, is attempting to go back. She's bringing all of these women with her," which is, like, an incredible point to her for going back to do that, that you don't get in Furiosa, and I feel like they could have added, like, a segment, like, just a little something of, like, this is why she decided to go back and stay, because I don't think we're meant to believe that, like, Anna Taylor-Joy shows back up to the Citadel and is immediately Charlize Theron, you know? Like, we
Right.
know that
There's
time
still
passes.
progress to be made. Yeah.
So, why does she let that time pass before leaving is kind of the question, and I feel like if
Mhm.
we're not gonna be satisfied in the film, that's maybe what they're trying to remind us. Also, on a less philosophical idea or note,
Mhm.
it makes you seeing those clips kinda makes you wanna go back and watch Fury Road.
It does. It does.
And I am assuming that I don't know where you can watch it nowadays. I know you can watch the originals on Max, but I don't know where else.
Blu-ray and DVD. To anybody listening, to anybody watching, get your physical media. Get your physical media. Get your physical media. But yeah, streaming wise, I believe it is currently on HBO Max. I think HBO
Yeah,
Max has been pretty keeping up with like if there's like
yeah,
a sequel or a prequel coming out, they're
has
like, we're gonna have
already.
everything on there for like the month that
So
it's out, and then we're gonna take it away.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
but that helps them financially. If they're saying, "Hey, look,
Mhm.
here we're going, and now we're gonna watch a little bit of a clip here and there of Fury Road, and, oh, now I wanna see this, I wanna see where this goes, I wanna see how it connects. I'm gonna go and try and get Max." If you don't have Max, you're gonna start paying for Max, you're gonna do the free day trial on whatever
And then
new,
you're gonna forget about it, and then
and
you're
then you're
trying to
gonna
just yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think there is
100%.
a monetary benefit as well as a physical aspect.
And speaking of monetary benefits, this slides us perfectly over into our movie theater butter pop quiz. Molly. I was gonna call you Marley.
I have played, The Ghost of Marley from Christmas Carol
I
before.
just I read your name on the thing and my brain it's
Added
I
letters, you're
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I can be Marley, it's fine.
Molly. Molly, are you ready for a movie theater butter pop quiz?
Oh, girl, no.
Okay, good. Strap in. So, according to IMDb, Furiosa was awarded a 107 million Australian dollars filming incentive for a grand total budget of 233 million American dollars. Fucking crazy, right? It solidified as the most expensive film production in Australia ever. Can you guess how much the film grossed in its first weekend globally?
I'm gonna say no because technically it is a holiday weekend. So therefore, that weekend hasn't ended, and that's where I'm gonna land on the of course I can't because it hasn't ended.
Interesting. I will award you points for creativity
Thank you.
because that was a good answer. That was a good answer.
I watch a
If I
lot of
was grading that as
Taskmaster.
a test, I'd be like, you know what? At least half a point for that one. Okay,
I'm
so
gonna say it's done well. I'm gonna guess that it has done well. I don't think it's probably met its budget yet, just based on, current film trends, but
yeah.
I'd say it's gonna probably get there in the next week.
Okay. Okay. So the current total, so the first weekend global box office for Furiosa is 65.3 million,
Okay.
which apparently is a historic low, especially for a Memorial Day weekend. Um, but as I was looking that up and as I was reading articles about it being a historic low for a Memorial Day box office blockbuster, I was also thinking about how expensive eggs are, how expensive gas is, how difficult the job market is. And I was kind of piecing together in my own little way why I think this box office may be low. One of the reasons I think this box
Yeah.
office may be low.
I also
Um,
think it came out on a
yeah.
Saturday. I feel like movies like this that are trying to get Memorial
Did
Day
it?
weekend usually come
Oh,
out on
yeah.
Fridays. And, like, I mean, cut
Mm.
this if I'm wrong, because I always saw the 25th was the opening day, and I was like, "Really?" Okay.
Oh, I thought it was the 24th. I don't know.
If it
I'm
was the
getting all
24th,
of
then I
my
thought
numbers mixed up.
I'm gonna cut this whole section
I'll
and
put
do
a
everything.
Yeah, I'll just put a little disclaimer, it's just, we'll get the information out
Molly
there.
can't read. Dyslexia strikes again.
It's okay. 10 seconds ago, I just called you Marley, so
We're good.
we're on even
Everything's
ground with
great.
that. We're good. Yeah, but apparently it's a historic low, which, I mean, we'll see how it develops and we'll see kind of where it goes. I think it's going to do at least decently well. I'm sure it will break even
Mhm.
and then some. But yeah, it could also be a number of things of why it hasn't hit the mark of what they want for the box office for
I
this.
will say, I feel like a Furiosa story is a gamble for them because I do think, not to get like stereotypical gender roles and everything, but marketing something like Mad Max is 100% marketed towards men. There
Mhm.
is so little of the original series and so little of Fury Road that I would say is marketed towards women.
Or at
I
least primarily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
primarily marketed. I'm not, like, again,
Mm.
grain of salt on the gender roles and the gender things. There is somebody in a box office, like, or somebody in an office who earns way more money than I, that sits there and says, "Here are the genders that we are trying to reach in the age brackets."
Mhm.
Fuck all of that in their plans because it's never going to land exactly where you think it is. And I've seen both of these movies as a self-identifying woman, so literally can't.
Mhm.
But it is such a guy's quote unquote film, you know? So
Mhm.
coming in and doing the female storyline of that, there's going to be people who are like, there's going to be assholes who are like, no, I will not go see the woman.
Oh boy, that's gonna get us on. How do I segue back to Hey Molly?
Hi.
How do you think this film is best watched?
I believe that this film is best watched definitely in a movie theater. I think
Mhm.
this is a sort of film that I would have watched on my I have a, like, reasonable sized TV screen at home, but I don't think you are going to get the, like, moment, you know? I don't know if the
Yeah.
mic is gonna catch that, so it's you know?
That's beautiful.
Thank you. So I would, I'd recommend people to actually go see it in theaters, and if you have the money to splurge, go see it in IMAX. You'll be like, "What?" the whole time. I assume. I didn't. I don't have the money to splurge. Thanks,
We'll
man.
get you A-list. We'll have to get you in our entourage, the
Yeah.
ongoing growing entourage of A-listers out here. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Goals.
I agree. I agree though. It is definitely a theater film. Definitely
Yeah.
a theater film. And also in certain contexts, I would personally add that it is a drive-in movie. I think it could be
Yes.
really
Oh my
good
god.
because also you're at the wheel and now you're going to drive home a little too fast, just a little too fast.
They might the companies who are hosting that might be like, I think I'm gonna not show this just, for our exit strategy."
Yeah, do Fast and Furious 7
Mhm.
specifically, and then Mad Max Fury Road, and then Baby Driver as like a little bit of a palate cleanser, and then Furiosa, a quadruple, somehow all during the nighttime because it has to be dark to do an outdoor theater. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Movies are fun. Go see movies. Also,
Yep.
physical media, guys. Get your physical media. HBO can't take away your DVD. Take care.
I 100% agree with that. I hold on and purchase VHSs or DVDs of anything that
You
I
have
truly love.
VHSs?
I do still have VHSs. I used
Molly,
to,
you're
and still can, collect
incredible.
Pokemon VHSs when I find them. 'Cause that's my childhood right there. And as much as
Molly
Netflix
Martin,
has it,
everyone.
I just, I still have a VHS player. I don't use it very often, and I know the VHSs are gonna probably crash, or they're gonna get, like, unwound and stretched out, and the DVDs are gonna
Mm.
get scratches, but it's gonna be there when everything else collapses. When the sun burns down and we still have solar energy, but we don't know how to use the internet anymore,
Mhm.
I will still have the opportunity to watch whatever weird stuff I have over there. Pokemon. I will be able to watch Pokemon.
So true. So true. And to wrap us all up, thank you so much, Molly. Be kind, rewind, and we will see you some next time on the Movie Theater Butter podcast. Nice.
Adieu.
Well, it sounds like that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Movie Theater Butter, a TillKim Productions podcast. Make sure to follow us where you're listening and on our Instagram page at the Movie Theater Butter podcast. And hey, it couldn't hurt if you gave us a quick 5-star rating on this platform. All right, I'm done. See you next episode.